So the first question that we wanted to ask you, Whitney, just to get to know you a little bit better in the company you work for, as a leader at a nonprofit organization designed to support entrepreneurship in the greater Memphis area, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the mission of your company?
Yeah, definitely. So, first of all, I'm a Memphis native, and the thing that makes me so excited to do this type of work is that we're really supporting entrepreneurs like that are from the community and those that are moving here. It's just all along the pipeline. A lot of people don't know, but Epicenter was actually a moon mission of the chamber. They originally saw that exactly what I said. The community was full of talent, full of opportunity. How could we get resources and partnerships together so that we could really start building up this entrepreneurial community? What were the networks? What was the access to capital? What was the people? What were the institutions like Troy and UMRF that could be created or linked to this entrepreneurship movement to see more sustainability from a lot of companies that are already here, recruiting some that could see Memphis as a great place to grow their idea into a business, or even just Memphis natives that wanted to answer some of the problems that we have with infrastructure or new innovations in the medical device field, like what Isaac's created, as well as Josh. So Epicenter is just here to support the entrepreneur with those resources.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So if I could ask, what services do you all offer to the community for people to engage with you?
Yeah, so Epicenter offers just a number of programs, as well as really a network of partners that can help solve those problems. So we look at ourselves as the hub of entrepreneurship in Memphis, and that's because Troy and I had a great conversation about this idea of incubation, right?
Hmm.
And what it really takes to incubate a business from idea to growth and sustainability isn't just one institution, but a
Hmm.
network of institutions, right? The incubation
Yeah.
has to be citywide. And what we recognize is that we had all of these elements, all of these nonprofits, we had institutions like the University of Memphis housing doctoral candidates and more. And we needed to create this hub, this epicenter that when people came through the front door, they weren't overwhelmed. So we
Hmm.
have internal programs. So if you've got an idea and you just want to, you're like, hey, I want to start a t-shirt business, or you're like, hey, I want to start a tech business, you come in, we direct you to the partner or the program. It could be co-starters, which a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurant and food businesses have done, or it could be our 0 to 5, 10 program that Isaac and Josh both participated in, as well as patents to products, the partnership that we've created with UMRF to say, how do we empower doctoral candidates to create these ideas into products that can bring them more capital. So we not only build programs that fill these gaps with the partnerships, but we also just direct people towards those resources, because that's what equitable access means. It's not just creating resources, but it's making sure the people
Hmm.
that need them are actually getting them. And we really find that to be important.
Oh, good to know. You hit on something there, incubators, and sometimes I think there's maybe a misconception or misunderstanding of what an incubator is. And I know for me, at one point, I thought Epicenter was an incubator as well. So can you talk a little bit about incubation and what that consists of, or how you all currently support that today as an organization?
Yeah, definitely. So, incubation, like kind of what I said before, is a really complex to really define what incubation is. When someone is coming in and you're providing them with all of the resources, whether it's marketing support, like just getting a pitch right, like that's a service, right? The
Hmm.
brand and how it exists, the science and resources, the lab space. It's a really multi-layer piece, and to really create a sustainable business, it takes a community. So I would say the closest thing to an incubator, without really saying it is an incubator, is what Troy leads at UMRF. So I want to pass it a little bit to Troy to talk about how UMRF exists in this space with our 0 to 510 businesses in the medical device field.
Yeah, thank you, Whitney. And we did just have this conversation talking about how bringing a business to life takes a community and takes a lot of support. UMRF Research Park, and I'll go into a little bit more detail when it's my turn next, but essentially was created in 2018 to solve a gap that we kind of found here in the Memphis community. And that was providing flexible co-working space, but also access to additional resources that the university has on campus and off campus. And to answer the incubation question, it really does take this giant community to come together, and it's a confusing path forward. And what we allow ourselves to do as these different institutions partnering together is provide just a cleaner way for someone to navigate such a complex system. And so I think that the benefit of all of us coming together as a community to help and support businesses is to provide them with this ease of entry. Not every institution really solves every problem, but it can also be confusing when you're trying to navigate all of these different institutions of who does what. And the way that I really see Epicenter is the over-encompassing entrepreneurial ecosystem. Like if there's any question that you ever have, Epicenter, I would say, is your first point of contact. And to Whitney's point, then they start navigating you through to the appropriate partners that they think would be the next best fit. And we at UMRF Research Park kind of sit in this unique area where we can work with everyone from a startup to Fortune 500 companies. And it's really more of a customized approach and an individualistic approach on how we integrate with your business plan. So incubation is really not a word that we typically use at UMRF, and I know Epicenter doesn't really either, and many of the other institutions in Memphis don't really use incubation, but it's more of a coming together to support businesses going forward, all of which I think brings together incubation. And that's how I would kind of allude to, the term incubation. It's really just not a specific place. It's all of us assisting you in your business going forward and all having a play in making sure that you succeed.
Beautiful.
So it's building that collaboration strategy amongst the various resources that we have here in the city of Memphis.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And all of us here actually are good friends outside of just business partners, all of which have engaged with each one of these entities differently, and that's truly how I think Memphis succeeds, is becoming this tethered together approach versus being very siloed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I want to ask you one more question, Whitney, here before we pivot to the next topic here, or next speaker here. Want to talk a little bit about business development here in the city of Memphis. So today, and I'm going to start with unemployment. So today, Memphis unemployment rate is about 6.5%. The U.S. average today, according to U.S. labor, is about 6%. There's a lot of variance right now due to COVID-19. With that being said, Memphis has seen an increase in the job market and is projected to have an increase of about 36% over 10 years, which is higher than the average for the US, which is about 33%. So some would say that a lot of contribution to job growth is going to be by us developing new businesses, us retaining businesses, and us attracting businesses to the city of Memphis. So what opportunities or challenges do you see with starting a business here in the city of Memphis?
Yeah. I think it's great that we're going to see that much job growth in Memphis. And I really do believe in it because of this energy of entrepreneurship and business building, just energy that we have everywhere in a lot of neighborhoods. I think the biggest thing that's going to be a challenge is that Memphis is a city that people are really starting to hear about, right? So when we think about capital, we have capital here, But when we first started talking about tech companies and other big companies, we directed that capital towards big cities like New York or even into California and those type of areas. So the access to capital piece is a challenge for every single city that has entrepreneurs. It doesn't change, right? But what we do recognize is that as a city that is looking at what did other cities do good and bad, we're creating equitable access to capital, right? We have talent, we have that can support you at Epicenter in getting to milestones. We have a capital executive in residence, right, that can help you navigate even the angel investment piece. We're looking at how do we get more minority angels engaged, right? These are things that a lot of cities overlooked. And we're looking at them like how you like ran a little bit too fast and you ran actually in the wrong direction. And we as Memphis can really pick it up and do the right thing. The other part is that it really is a great city that has a lot of great partners. I can't express that enough from what we do, right? To be able to succeed as a business, you need an entrepreneurship community that's willing to collaborate. And so whether you're in the agriculture business or if you're in the medical device or you're a food and beverage business, we have pathways to success because we've created these partnerships. That's the opportunity that companies that want to move to Memphis are seeing because they're tired of being in cities where there's so much of this competition that they are forgotten about as the entrepreneur. And really in Memphis, the opportunity here is that we have the entrepreneur at the center and we want to see that growth and success. So challenges are the same challenges you'll get in any other city, but the opportunities here are just endless.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Whitney. These have been some great talking points, and thank you for sharing with us. So with that being said, we are going to transition to Troy. How you doing, sir?
I'm well. Thank you very much, James, for having me today and making me part of this smart panel. I'm definitely let's just say everyone's smarter than me on this panel, that's for sure.
Well, you shared a little bit about UMRF Research Park, but we definitely want to learn a little bit more. So as a company focused on research-driven growth, innovation, collaboration, as we talked about, and in fact, I think some of you on this panel might have some collaborations or relationships. Can you talk a little bit more about yourself and the mission of your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Troy Parks. Thank you again for having me here. I'm actually originally from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, which is outside of Toronto, which is sort of some would deem the Silicon Valley of the North. It's where Google's headquarters is in Canada and a few other large tech companies. So I've come from a pretty robust tech ecosystem, and then I married a Southern girl and came south. And with that, I was able to have some really interesting conversations with leadership at U of M. And we came to the conclusion that there's just the march towards Carnegie R1, which is a top tier research institution. We looked at other comparable schools, and about 80 to 90% of those schools had a research and tech park of some capacity. And we knew that with us here in Memphis and the University of Memphis, we couldn't go out and raise $200 million and build this massive infrastructure like a Georgia Tech had done. And so we wanted to start small and start with a proof of concept. So we isolated an old, really unique building that was just off campus, about a 5-minute walk, and requested some funding from the state, and we're able to deploy that into the building and make it what it is today. And it started in December of 2018. And before we had even opened the doors, we pretty much filled the space up. And we had one of our first buy-ins on this panel right here, and that's Isaac in SweetBio. And Isaac can address, what it looked like when he first walked through and took the tour to what it is today. And, we're pretty proud. We've engaged with over 50 companies over the course of our lifespan thus far. And we've, I would say, made a pretty large economic impact on the city. And we look forward to, continuing our economic development, especially with a unique role in which my boss, Ted Townsend, has, which is he's the Chief Economic Development Officer of the U of M and also the Chief Economic Development Officer of the Greater Memphis Chamber. So we are on an accelerated path with economic development and recruiting businesses nationally. And we have some international strategies as well, which I'm happy to address later if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, as a University of Memphis alumni, big supporter of what you all are doing. Go Tigers all day.
Go Tigers.
But so how does UMRF service the community? So what are some of those programs or offerings that you all provide?
Yeah, great question. And I kind of addressed this a little bit before, but we take this concierge kind of individualistic or customized approach to each individual company. So the way that we do it is we understand that we're not here to do your business plan. We have other great partners that can help assist in that mechanism, but we're here to kind of take that into a different level in which the university might have specific assets that you're looking for. And so we kind of sit down and discuss with the companies how deep they want us to be integrated into their business plan. And from there, we kind of start addressing those opportunities that might be there or challenges. So, a great example is with SweetBio is they needed some on-campus lab space and wanted to continue to do specific things with the professor who helped Isaac formulate their incredible technology. And so that was a really nice asset for them to be here in the research park and close to campus and utilize the lab space at a different price point than it would be if you were to go out and find a corporation that would assist you in that. So that's one example. And then another one with Green Mountain Technology, who we have their innovation team here on in the research park, theirs was actually they wanted to look at a talent pipeline. So we recognized with them that they weren't hiring as much from U of M as they were from other SEC schools. And so from there, what we did is we integrated them with the deans and specific faculty and created an internship program. And from there, we've had tremendous success. And we recognized heavily, and Whitney kind of brought this up, was Memphis doesn't have a talent issue, it has a retention issue. Yeah. And with that retention issue, I think entrepreneurism can really address that. And I think it's getting in early and having these conversations, but also creating this inviting ecosystem. And I've kind of lived it firsthand, being a transplant from Canada and coming here, and just how quickly everyone opened their arms to support and move the mission forward, which I think is pretty incredible. So I just think, it's don't be scared to ask. And like I said, I think for everyone here that's interested in starting a business or growing a business or scaling it, I think the best thing that you could do is connect with Epicenter, sit down with a one-on-one and just start kind of laying out everything. And then from there, they can start connecting you to the right partners. So those are just kind of some examples. And then, Whitney also brought up our Patents to Products initiative, which is a really cool collaboration between the University of Memphis and Epicenter, where we're focusing on postdoctorals that are coming from the University of Memphis that have either intellectual property themselves or want to use a piece of intellectual property that the U of M has created and start a business. And with that, they have this really incredible deep science mindset. And what we're trying to do in Epicenter has done really well from a programmatic standpoint is getting the business side up and running because there's a lot of challenges there. And so I think we're in this really unique position in Memphis where, again, Whitney brought it up, where we're kind of at this building ground where I think this pandemic actually allowed us to kind of sit back and look at our entire ecosystem and actually do this the right way and bring in the right resources. And so I think you're going to see a lot of incredible momentum, I think, coming in the next probably few years.
Gotcha. No, thank you, Troy. Thank you for that answer. Want to ask you one more question here real quick, if I can, and kind of spark the thought, and Whitney kind of touched on this as well, as, one of the biggest challenges being access to capital. And I've heard a lot of small business owners express confusion around how they can obtain external funding for their business. And just some that, sometimes we think of funding sources, business angels, investment funds, financial loans, crowdfunding. In your experience, how can startups obtain that venture funding access to support their business? It might be a hard question, but just throwing that out there.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. And I'll actually start that with the individuals on the panel, which is, it really comes down to us educating investors as well. So one thing I noticed when I first came here was the effort to educate the investor about these opportunities. I find that sometimes when we're looking at capital and we're looking at angel investors, Whitney brought this up, was it's not that we don't have a lack of capital. It's just I find that it's on us to educate our investors about the opportunities and about investing in general. And then from there, I think there's a lot of avenues and a lot of opportunity to access capital. But I think it's not as simple as just saying this is the avenue you need to take. And again, I think this, and not to keep throwing it back at Epicenter, but I think that's where you really have this conversation with Epicenter to find out what type of capital you truly need. And I think that's one mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make early on is taking on the wrong type of capital and potentially even taking it on from the wrong investor. And so I think we really need to understand kind of what the entrepreneur is looking for in, let's say, the next 5 years or whatever that milestone is, and then start evaluating the capital sources that are available. Because to your point, James, there's all these different avenues, and it's not a one size fits all. And then within all of those verticals, there's different ways to raise it. So sometimes there's convertible debt or there's a safe note. And so being educated on that, I think, is important. But that's where I would say you'd really want to lean on your partners to kind of walk you through that educational component, because I think bringing on the wrong capital can be, a challenge then in your future when you try and grow and scale. So I think it's really definitely taking a needs analysis and sitting down with partners to figure out kind of really what is the right capital stack for you going forward. And with regards to the research park and how we sometimes assist in that, we have got really great partners on the legal side who we have conversations with and make introductions for, and they'll dive deeper into the opportunity of capital, and then within their kind of network they'll make some introductions as well. So it's really a close community here in Memphis, and I think if you start having the right conversations and presenting it the right way, and again, Whitney had mentioned, helping craft the pitch, I think is really important, and addressing that going forward.
Absolutely. And so, go ahead, Whitney. Yeah, please.
I want to jump in really quick before we send it to like two entrepreneurs that I think are doing amazing work. But I think one of the key things that I picked up in just this conversation that was extremely organic for anyone that's looking for like what really makes an entrepreneurship city. Troy, throw it to us whenever we do it or don't do it, like yell us out by name, right? Like, because sometimes you see people say like, oh, this is a business or this is a company that's my partner, but you're like, but what do they actually do? Right. And I think what's here is that we're actually partners that are doing the work. So when Troy's saying we have a partner with legal, and Epicenter saying we have a partnership with this group or with UMRF, like those partnerships are really functioning arms and not just things that are slapped on a board that says we just have this affiliation with this brand. So Memphis really has a perk in having real authentic partnerships that move people forward, and hopefully people see that in this conversation.
Definitely, and you couldn't have said that better. And I actually think we're on the cusp of even creating that partnership even deeper than it already is. And I think that's one of the opportunities we have here in Memphis, and with the pandemic, is it really helped us sit back and reevaluate kind of where we need to go going forward. And that's where all the partners have kind of come together and said, all right, let's sit down and let's focus this and accelerate this. And that's what I think is going to be really exciting going forward for Memphis.
Yeah, man. Thank you both for making those points. I mean, when it comes back down to it, it's about building relationships, collaboration and partnerships. And thank you all for hitting on those points. And I think you have keyed us up to really talk about some people that are doing it, some of those innovators and those entrepreneurs. So we're going to pivot here to Isaac. How you doing, Isaac?
Doing well, James. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you inviting me to step in. It's hard to fill the shoes of my much younger sister, but I'm doing the best that I can today.
No, thank you. Again, thank you for stepping up today to speak with us. So when I first heard about SweetBio, medical device startup specializing in tissue regeneration, I'll be honest, a little bit out of the realm of my expertise, but I was fascinated by the innovation and the fact that, this local startup is helping to really revolutionize, multiple markets and how everyone's dealing with this wound management. So can you tell us a little bit more about your organization, about your journey, and what was the inspiration behind SweetBio?
Sure, absolutely. So we're not from Memphis. I moved here from Virginia, and I was working at the University of Memphis as a postdoctoral fellow, and my research had focused on how Manuka honey in general can help heal different types of wounds. And if you go to the hospital even 5-10 years ago, you may get treated with Manuka honey as a gel or a paste because it's thick enough. It helps prevent some bacteria infections. It can help progress the wound moving forward, but it's a very short-term, sticky, messy, topical application. So when I came to the University of Memphis, I was working with Dr. Bolin there at the biomedical department, but then also with an oral surgeon, and he was looking for a product that can help heal gums after dental surgery. So you want to close the gums up fast so you don't get that infected or a dry socket or anything like that. So what we ended up doing was combining my knowledge of Manuka honey and how it helps heal wounds, but how can we take that messy ingredient and incorporate it into a longer term delivery device? So now we've created is basically an unmessed honey sheet that can be implanted into the body in a surgical site, whether it's dental, whether it's wounds, veterinary, spinal, orthopedics, sports medicine.
Wow.
We can go any type of route, just tissue regeneration in general. So that looks like the aha moment in the lab was really combining something that is well known, but using it in a different way. And then with SweetBio, we're basically saying we're unmessing honey. We're making it into a solid form that you can actually surgically implant honey into the body. And it lasts, our product in diabetic foot ulcers, which is a pretty aggressive environment, lasts about a week. So it completely resorbs and degrades into the body. And for surgical sites that aren't as aggressive, it lasts about 2 to 4 weeks in the body. So I would say, the inspiration for starting it was, yes, it was my background, it was my project, it was my baby when I was in the lab, and that was my passion moving forward. But also I had some strong examples of entrepreneurship in my family, so I wasn't really as afraid to move forward. I had a trusted business partner in my sister who believed in the product as much as I did and believed in the technology. So there's 2 real ways that you can take a technology out of the lab, and that's you try to license it to a larger company that can then take it to the market, or you basically do it yourself. So with everything that was going on in my life at the time, with the partners that I surrounded myself with, it just made sense for me to just form a team and start it myself. So the inspiration was both, I would say both personal, from having the support from my family and a committed business partner, and then also on my research side.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos to you guys, and thank you for inspiring me. I'll say that for sure. To show that it can be done and that hard work can bring, these dreams to fruition. So I know that, this journey that you've been down has possibly had hurdles. I imagine every startup has its hurdles. So as you've gone through this journey, what are 2 valuable lessons that maybe you can share from your experience?
Yeah, you could probably have a whole book on lessons from this panel, I'm sure, on learned, yes. And so 2 that I'll highlight real quick is, and I still today, you don't know what you don't know. And it sounds interesting the first time you hear it, but so what we try to do is surround ourselves with people that know more about a certain topic than we do, that we can ask the stupid questions to. You're not knowing what you're going into in entrepreneurship. This is the first time you're starting a company. Even if it's the second or third time, you're bringing experiences, but you think it's going to take a year and $1 million. It's probably going to take 2 years and $2 million, and you just don't know what you don't know. So surround yourself with people that you can ask the dumb questions to. And then since Kayla can't be on the panel, I'll use something that she likes to use as well, is that you don't have to be an inventor to be innovative. So for me, I invented the product, and for me, that was my innovation. But for her, she's the business side of this, so she can bring innovation to SweetBio by innovating customer service, by innovating the business model, by having an innovative product these days is just not enough. You have to have a more comprehensive solution. So just understanding that you can bring innovation to a company or to your startup in more than one way than just an invention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the last question here, Isaac, that I'd like to ask you. So according to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, we know about 90% of startups fail, and I hate to say that. 75% of venture-backed startups fail. Under 50% of businesses actually make it to their 5th year. Do you think that there is a common path that every startup should try to undertake to reduce the risk of failure? And maybe it's not black and white. I know it's not black and white, but.
Yeah, I mean, those are alarming statistics, and hopefully that, the Memphis ecosystem can help, raise those up. We're fortunate enough to have been around for 6 years and have raised $6 million, and hopefully, we're still breaking the barrier on those statistics. But yeah, I would say that Incubator, Accelerator programs, those, what like we did, the 0 to 510 program, that is one way to de-risk it. You have an idea, you do this structured program that gives you your first infusion of capital, whether that's $50,000 to work for 3 months, and you get to prove out your concept. And if that doesn't work, then you move on to something else. If it doesn't work, then you can raise $1 million next. So that's one way to de-risk it. Other ways are working or co-working in spaces like Epicenter or UMRF Research Park, where we office at. And you're just surrounded by other entrepreneurs who are doing the same thing. So you just not being alone is a way to de-risk it. And if you can have your office in a space with other people who are going through similar struggles, all entrepreneurship is pretty similar from a formula standpoint. So it's like if someone's going through something on the tech side, just because we're in the medical side doesn't mean that they can't help us out. So surrounding ourselves with people that are in that space. And the last one that I was thinking of is that entrepreneurship is, treating it more like a dial and not a switch. So, many people ask me, when did you switch over to entrepreneurship? And I didn't just quit my job in day one and then the next day start SweetBio. So I would treat entrepreneurship as a dial. So like myself, you start off having a full-time job, and then you have a side hustle, or you have something that's maybe picking up, and then you have a full-time job and a part-time job. And eventually you can have 2 full-time jobs if that side hustle, if you're a startup, is really gaining traction. And then you have to make a decision. Do I go full-time with this startup, or do I keep my full-time job? So that, I think, is something that could help with the common path is just, don't just quit your day job today and start a business tomorrow, but just date it, try it out for a little bit, and then see if that's something you really want to do, because that does ramp up into kind of full-time entrepreneurship if it's gaining traction, and you de-risk your finances and you de-risk anything else on the personal side by keeping your full-time job.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your time here, Isaac, and giving us some insights here. I know that those stats were a little bit shocking. So anybody on the panel want to speak to that, or are we good to move forward?
I'll just make one comment, dovetailing off Isaac, which is pivot. If you see an opportunity that you need to pivot in advance, be proactive about it. I think that's a thing that a lot of individuals forget going through this, path forward, which is there are lots of moments where you pivot. I think the statistic is, and don't hold me to it, but it's somewhere around an average startup pivots like 3 times in their first 5 years or something. So just recognize and don't hold exactly on to, what's your baby. Look at the opportunity to potentially pivot and address, where the market really is going and the feedback you're getting. I think that's another huge component to what Isaac is bringing up, is surrounding yourself with smart individuals. And that's why I always say I'm never the smartest one in the room. Everyone here is smarter than me. But if you surround yourself with the smartest people in the room, they're going to give you great feedback, and take that feedback as and use it. Don't be emotional about it. Sometimes it can be emotional, especially if it's someone near and dear to you that's giving you that feedback. But take it, digest it, and then use it for your future, because they're giving you that feedback for a reason. So utilize it and take advantage of it and address it.
Yeah. And definitely Troy, you hit that beautifully out of the park. And I wanted to highlight just some of the things that Isaac just brought up throughout, and just piggybacking even off of the idea of pivoting, is that there's no magic formula to being a successful entrepreneur. But one of the things that people always forget. You think it's like, oh, if I get the money and if I get the mentor I really want, like I'm just gonna succeed. But a big part of this is your entrepreneurial ambition, right? The ability to pivot, the ability to work with other partners, and to kind of understand that entrepreneurship takes time, right? Like Isaac has successfully raised a lot of money and has built a team, and those aren't things that happen overnight. And I think sometimes we have this idea that businesses are built like that, like in an Instagram post, and it really does take a lot of time. And so that entrepreneurship part is something that if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you have to have it. You have to have the energy and self-care allocated to do it. So Isaac definitely conveys that a lot. And so glad he spoke so well about it.
Thank you all for speaking on that topic. You don't want to fall for sunk cost fallacy. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. So thank you all for sharing those insights. And we are going to go to another entrepreneur that is doing some great things. So how you doing, Josh?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah.
Happy to be surrounded by people who continue to inspire me.
Absolutely. So the first time I heard about SOMAVAC Medical Solutions, actually, I think was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it was regarding another business accelerator in the city for medical startups. I think I was reading about 0 to 510. So can you tell us a little bit about what SOMAVAC Medical Solutions does? I know I read a little bit about the surgical pumps or drainage that you all have curated. And I know that over 800,000, surgical patients are in need of this type of support annually. So can you speak a little bit about your background, the mission of your company, and enlighten us a little bit here?
Sure. So I came to Memphis in 2014 to do a master's at U of M. My grad advisor was Dr. Ezra Rohn, who is the co-founder and CEO of SOMAVAC. So I was actually getting ready to leave Memphis, and I went to Ezra to have a conversation that I wouldn't be doing PhD with her, and she said, well, that's great, because I was worried about what you were going to do. I'm not really thrilled about being in academia anymore. So one thing led to another. We had worked with a couple of general surgeons here in Memphis, and they gave us this problem of seroma. And so what that is when, and like you said, about 1 million procedures a year, there's a surgical dead space that's created. So you can think of mastectomy, breast reconstruction, hernia repair. And that surgical wound, so it's the wound the physician creates when he operates, just like when you hit your knee, it fills up with fluids. So it's serous fluid. It's like the other part of blood that isn't cells. And if it's not mitigated and removed properly, it leads to complications, infections, resurgeries, and a tough time for patients. So the goal was create something that more effectively removes the fluid that builds up in that space. And so for me, starting out, to be honest, it was a project that distracted me from writing my thesis at the time. There's something to do. But once we got out and met patients, specifically mastectomy breast cancer survivors, and saw what they dealt with post-surgery and went home with and had to manage, it really inspired us and kind of led us to our mission, which if you open up our box, if the patient opens it up, the first thing we say is that we're there to help you recover wherever you may be. So we're talking about hospital and home, but we're also talking about, where they might be mentally and physically. And that kind of permeates everything we do, from design and back of the house to customer support, just making sure we're there 24/7.
No, thank you, Josh. That's very enlightening. I mean, it sounds like you guys, and just based off of what I've read and what you have shared, you all are really doing life-changing work. I mean, that's helping people out. And, a lot of times, I guess, when you think about businesses, at least from what I've learned, is, it's about what is the problem that you're solving. And is it a demand? And sounds like this is something that you all are truly fulfilling here. So I imagine that journey, just like with Isaac, it hasn't been maybe as simple or straightforward for you. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way in your journey here?
Sure. I think for me, we've touched on it here a little bit, but the just overwhelming power of relationships. And by that, I don't mean networking, sharing a card, getting an email. It really means a relationship that you've fought for and developed. Everything from the team we have to the physicians we work with to our partners here are people that we've committed to that relationship and built and developed. And you really never know, like Isaac said, you don't know what you don't know. And without those people to rely on, you're almost lost. Let's see.
No, absolutely.
Some other lesson maybe I thought of, as an engineer, I think a lot of times you suffer from analysis paralysis, and not just as an engineer, I think a lot of us do. So knowing what the right answer is something, you just keep struggling with. So, sometimes there's no right answer, and knowing the value of knowing when you need to make a decision can almost be as important as making the decision at all. And understanding that, setting that, and keeping moving.
I understand. Well, let me ask you another question here, Josh, if I can. And I know we got to get to Q&A. We've got about 12 minutes, so we are going to get to everybody's questions. And thank you all for patiently waiting. According to Deloitte, the health tech startup industry right now is seeing a lot of fast growth. In 2020, venture funding in the health tech startup was about 14 billion, doubling compared to what it was in 2019. In fact, I believe some investors are saying that this is potentially $1 trillion opportunity here in the health tech space. Based off of your experience starting this company, what are some of the success factors that you see have gotten you to the point to where you are today? And that blurs the lines a little bit with the last question I just asked, but what do you see are the success factors for why SOMAVAC is where it is today as a company?
Sure. I think, you can never understate the importance of the team, the team you build. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And, they're the obvious things, background and expertise and experience, but I think there's a huge importance to the kind of the diversity of the team. So find someone that doesn't think like you, that doesn't look like you, that has a totally different personality type. I think that's worked very well for Ezra and I. We're about as different as you can be on like every level, except for the things we agree on, which is, our mission. I think we've touched on access to capital. It's hugely important. There might be a lot of capital out there, but when we say access to capital, we really mean access to people. And understanding how to do that. Troy touched on a little bit, access to the right kind of capital. And that's something that the work that like Epicenter is doing is hugely important. There's a lot of money in Memphis, but maybe not a lot of tolerance for the kind of the high tech, high growth startups. So they do a lot of work to kind of educate those angel investors and then introduce them to the people looking for capital. We don't have a huge history of high tech, high growth startups. So that work is just hugely important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Josh, so much. Again, I want to thank all our panelists for all the time you all have given us. I want to pause here to really allow our audience to kind of engage and ask you all a couple more questions here. So I know we've got about 9 minutes, want to respect everybody's time. So Jessica, I know I've been seeing the chat box go into a flurry over here. So we want to raise up some of these questions. Do you know what the first question is here, Jessica, that we have on deck?
Yes, I shared it with you in the panelist chat. Look over to your left.
All right. Okay. I don't know if this is the first one, but I am going to ask it. What organizations invest in business startups locally and within the region? And what are potential qualifications these sources look for?
Yeah, I'll take the first swing at that one because I think that one's perfectly directed towards Epicenter and what we do. So there's quite a number of organizations that honestly invest in startups locally. You can contact Epicenter through our website, and there's an intake form there. And so it will ask you some questions that helps us direct you towards the right business or to the right program. If you're someone that's looking to start a business, right, that could be you going through the co-starters program or one of our pre-accelerator programs. That's if you're at the idea stage of your business. And then there might be things that when you say invest in a startup, you might actually be a business that's been around for quite some time. And that idea of I need some capital, whether it's debt or equity capital, might be the investment type you need. We have a talent team, an executive in residence program, and entrepreneur in residence that can help you with that and to get ready to work with different community development, financial institutions, and banks and others to help you grow your business. So there's a lot of organizations from the city all the way to some of the private and public institutions that a lot of us have shouted out doing the work. But just contact Epicenter and we will help direct you to what that resource is.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Whitney. Any additional questions in our Q&A? If not, I've got a lot more I can ask. So, but I'll pause here for another minute to see if anybody else has a question in the chat. So I'll throw this one out here because this one's always a kind of a standard go-to. Everybody on this panel seems like you guys are well-read. Any fundamental literature that you all have read that you think would be worthwhile promoting or telling someone about so that they can learn more about how to get involved in this space? And if not,
I don't mind chiming in for a second. You know, I actually get a lot of my literature from Twitter. There's an incredibly engaged ecosystem on Twitter, especially around the entrepreneurial mindset. And there's some great people to follow there. But one person that I've been personally following a lot is Stephen Case. And I know Isaac, is familiar with what he's been doing. He's a co-founder and founder of AOL and has done Rise of the Rest and is really touring kind of regional areas to make investments. But he's got a book called The Third Wave that I think is really good and can really kind of shed some light on some items. But I would say jump on, again, this is just me speaking, anyone else can say, but jump on Twitter and start following some people that are in that. And there's a really good opportunity to just kind of see what people are saying. And then from there, there's usually some great resources that they kind of highlight and that you can jump to and start reading on. And then I've just been really big into like podcasts and stuff as well now.
Me too.
Nice.
I'll jump in on top of that too, maybe a little bit. On the podcast, there's I think Stanford has the Entrepreneurial Thought Leaders podcast, which is
okay.
If I'm going on a road trip, I'll just like binge that. And it's just the most interesting ideas. A real practical one is called Venture Deals. It's kind of like the Bible for venture capital funding. And it is all of the things I wish I knew before I took the first dollar.
Gotcha.
Again, we've had great partners here, so it was fair, but practical one.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. So I'll throw out another kind of standard question that is sometimes asked. I want to start my business. What kind of entity should I start? Very standard, very basic question that I know has a lot of answers, but go ahead.
A for-profit entity, period. I think that's, I think Memphis has a lot of nonprofits. And the reason why I'm answering that, not in like, oh, is it the LLC or am I a sole proprietor? Like that's all legal stuff. You can Google it. You should talk to a legal agent about what's best for you, liabilities. I'm not a lawyer, so let's not direct the question into that answer, but more so when I say a for-profit is because for-profit businesses have such a huge impact on a city. And I think we in Memphis think that the nonprofit industry is doing all that work. But when we talk about what is employment, what is like driving job growth, when you put that stat out there, James, that's big. Like, how are we creating more living wage opportunities? We can address a lot of our social justice issues and our community issues by supporting entrepreneurship in those neighborhoods. How do we keep that mom and pop in the neighborhood that is also getting additional development dollars, right? That's a entrepreneurship discussion when you really address it holistically, like we're trying to do here in Memphis. So if you really want to see change in growth and generate wealth, you see a lot of that when it comes to a lot of Black entrepreneurs we work with, a lot of women entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship and for-profit businesses are the way to go. And I saw there was a question that asked about B corporations that got dropped in there. Erica Plybier, who created MedHall, actually was recently designated a B corporation. And so I don't know if anyone knows a little bit more about the B Corp process. I'll turn it over to it, but we have a couple of them, Yancey, in Memphis that are really doing a lot of great work. It's just another process, and we can assist people in getting those resources to do that, working with a legal team.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Whitney. Well, we're coming up on time here, 2 minutes. Excuse me. I want to respect everybody's time here. So I think this is a good place for us to kind of go ahead and end the event. So I want to just give a big thank you, Isaac, Whitney, Troy, Josh. You all gave us an hour of your time, and I know time is a commodity that we don't have control over. So thank you for sparing that with us. And thank you to our YPC members for attending this event. Hope that you got some value out of this event. I know I learned a lot here today. Just as a quick plug for YPC, we are going to have many more events throughout the year. So you can always go to memphischamber.com, check out the website, check out Facebook. We've got a new Instagram page. So please check. Jessica, what is the Instagram page? YPC Chamber. At YPC Chamber, I believe, is our Instagram page. So check us out. It's in the chat, YPC Memphis Chamber. And again, the next event we'll have is another corner office in May, and then we'll have a mixer in June or July. So again, just be on the lookout for our communications. And again, big thank you to our panelists, and thank you all for giving us some time today. Talk to you all again, hopefully sometime soon. I'll see you around. Thank you, everybody.